You're able to create an audience in two different ways from the platform. So firstly, you can do this through the community wall, or you can do this through the Audience Manager feature further down the bottom. So if we scroll down, so it's found here. So for both methods, you can see all of your audiences within this section. So these are all created audiences from the past that we've made. And we'll start with creating an audience directly on the community wall. And in order to do this, you can click on one of your accounts or one of these third-party accounts. Here we're going to click into a third-party source, so Kellogg's. And once you land on this community wall view, you're able to use the left-hand filters here to enrich your audience. So you can use this tab, use different filters to, for example, look for someone with a high amount of followers, somebody quite influential. The second tab along is the demographic filter as well. So do you want to change the time zone? Do you want someone with a URL in their profile? And then you can either add these users by clicking on all criteria here and selecting all and adding them to an audience. So by select all, we mean adding every one of these 826 users into an audience. Or we can individually select different user cards and click into who we'd like to add to that audience. Bear in mind that you can only select users on a page-by-page basis if you're to use the select blue button at the bottom here. To create an audience using Audience Manager, you can click down from the target bar onto the Audience Manager from the drop-down, and you'll see these three different types of audiences. So for the community management tool, static audiences are available. To find out more information about dynamic or periodic, please look up the connection platform. Start by clicking through to next. So you have to begin by adding a title for your audience. So just putting in test here. And a note about the maximum audience size. So this is the maximum amount of users that can be added to the audience, and it can't be above 80% of your social contacts. The reason being is this limit works to prevent you from suddenly finding yourself in a position where you just don't have any social contacts left after adding a new source. Now we're going to start with defining the criteria. So if you click on to add criteria, going to head on to Twitter profile and do a bio search. So we're going to add in an example of journalists, media, so things associated with this industry, even broadcasting as a keyword. You can also add additional criteria alongside this. You can see the rubbish bin icon on the right to delete any criteria that's unnecessary. And we can also add in any different types of things to narrow down your criteria more. So certain location, do we want to look for journalists who are based in London? Or you can add in any different city and you'll be able to narrow that down. You can also use the all button found below that panel. And that's to add more expressions to your query to create the perfectly refined audience. You can easily remove whole expressions or individual conditions by clicking on remove this condition or the rubbish bin icon respectively again. It's also optional to connect the audience to Twitter ads directly once you finish creating that audience. And then you can click finish to complete that audience, which will then be found on your home dashboard. So what's the difference between creating an audience on the community wall and using Audience Manager? Well, with Audience Manager, you're creating a criteria of the users that you'd like to find on Twitter generally. They aren't necessarily users that follow you or the third-party accounts added to your account. They're just general Twitter users that meet your requirements. Whereas when you create an audience from the community wall, you're creating it from your own account's community or a third-party account. Just to note, the more refined your audience is, the more relevant your campaign will be, and therefore you're more likely to generate more leads.